The relationship is the essential thing to the parenting, not the discipline.
Welcome to the Connect Method Parenting Podcast, where correction is out, connection is in, and your kids want to listen to you. I'm Andy Martineau, creator of Connect Method Parenting, here to help you stay calm, confident, and connected no matter what.
Welcome. We are going to go through a couple of exercises today and talk about amazing things that are going to help your parenting just up level. I want to start by taking you through a 2-minute, what I'm calling a connection rep. I want you to think about it in the same way you would when you're building your muscles. And what happens when you go to the gym consistently, right? And they do the different reps is the muscles slowly build. And one of the things that we're trying to build in the path and the journey of becoming a Connect Method parent is building the muscle of being present and calming our nervous system down so that we can connect with ourselves, which also allows us to connect with our children. And it's something really powerful that I'm going to start talking to you more and more about, are just really simple ways to slow our bodies down, especially when we're in that fight or flight mode, or when we can tell we're going into that fight or flight mode, so that we can bring it back and not go down those old pathways we used to go down. So this is very simple. It's going to be 2 minutes long. I call it a connection rep. And it's something that I'm going to walk you through right now, but something that you can access and do anytime. So I want you to sit comfortably with your spine relaxed and your head straight. And I want you to have your chest open and your feet, if possible, flat on the floor. So hopefully you can sit. If you're doing something else, you can come back to this later. So starting off with just sitting comfortably with your spine relaxed, your head straight, your chest open, feet flat on the floor. And if you're able to, and if you can't right now, do this later, just close your eyes. Now, I'm going to lead you through this, very simple, some what I call connection reps with our sense of touch. So I want you to start by rubbing 2 fingers together, just the tips. It can be any of them. There's not a right or wrong way, but I want you to have so much attention that you can feel the ridges of both fingers. And I want you to do that for a second. What this is doing is it's bringing us back to the moment, to the present, right? Our brains, when we're in fight or flight mode, when the kids are fighting or we're starting to get escalated because there's a mess or bedtime's going so long, our body's going into autopilot mode. We're going down old neural pathways that we've been practicing over and over again. So just doing something as simple as touching the fingertips together with attention on the thing we're doing, which is touching our fingertips together, with so much attention that we can feel the fingertip ridges. That's really powerful. So I want you to do that for just a minute and just feel it. You're closing your eyes, feet are on the floor if possible, back straight, open, head straight, chest open. And you're just feeling it. What this is doing is telling our nervous system, we're okay. We're okay. And you can only imagine if you're in the heat of the moment, you're not going to have your eyes closed. Probably you could. But you can just rub it and it's your fingers together. And it's just a powerful way to say, hey, body, I'm okay. So you would do that for a minute. And then what I want you to do is rub all of your fingertips together. So one hand against the other. And I want you to feel the palm and the fingertips. And I just want you to notice the sensations. It's not very often we give ourselves permission to slow ourselves down in order to notice those sensations. And as you're doing that, feeling those ridges, feeling the bumps, feeling the sensations of rubbing the hands together. The research has shown that as we do this, they've done this research where they're looking at the brain, they're mapping the brain, and they're seeing the parts of the brain that are lighting up. They are the parts of our brain that allow us to be calm and connected, that allow us to be in a place of feeling safety, that calms our nervous system down, it calms our emotions down. Just this simple act. Now, one more thing. I want you to put your hand on your stomach. You can put both hands on your stomach for a minute. And I want you to just notice the gentle rising and falling of your stomach with each breath. And you would just do that for a minute too. And this is a way to come back to presence. So 3 things I taught you today, and I want you to practice those this week and see how they go. So first one is just rubbing 2 fingers together with such attention that you can feel the ridges of both fingertips. And if you're a little bit heightened right now, this is something you can do right now. Hopefully I'm feeling myself calming down, taking both hands and rubbing them together with such attention that you're feeling all the ridges and the bumps. And then just putting a hand on our stomach and noticing the gentle rising and falling. So I'm going to give that to you, offer that to you this week as a way to build the muscle of being present, to build the muscle of calming your nervous system down, and to build the muscle of being attentive to what's happening. It's a way to get out of our head, which oftentimes when things are escalating, things aren't going the way that we want them to, or even if things are just not quite the way we want them to, our nervous system or our mind will start to get triggered and we'll start to feel these other, like this momentum almost going down this path, this old way, these old neural pathways of what we thought and believed before. So this is a very simple way to interrupt that. I've been doing it a lot lately. I've really upped it the last few months and I'm just seeing such a powerful impact. I'm like, I've got to teach this to you guys because it's just one of the tools that we can use in the heat of the moment that's so simple and so easy that then will allow us to transition into using some of the other tools that might take more time or might be less convenient to do in the heat of the moment. So that's something really quick, really simple, really easy that you can do in the moment, interrupting those old neural pathways. Your brain's going to want to lecture or label the kids as something as problematic or stay in that frustration energy when they're acting a certain way, or just lean into the trigger when the house is so messy. Whatever it is for you, this 2-minute, it's a tactile connection rep is something you can do. Just rubbing the fingers together, feeling the ridges. Yes, it's that easy, I promise. And it can derail that old pattern. I like to think of it as a railway track. Our brain is like the train, and it's going down the track and it's barreling down. We want to take it off that track that's well practiced and well oiled and well rehearsed and put it onto a new track. And that's what this is going to do, which is a really simple way. So try it this week and let me know what you think. So what I wanted to start with today was, if you're able to, pull out a piece of paper and I want you to do just a really quick thought download. I want you to write down the most common thoughts you have when your kids are having off-track behavior, when things aren't going the way that you think they should, when you're feeling a little bit frustrated. And I want you to really be unfiltered, uncensored, and totally transparent. I want you to write them down because the only way you can release them is to get them from the subconscious to the conscious. We're talking about that subconscious today, which is really the patterns, the thoughts, the beliefs that are driving that train down that well-rehearsed track. And we want to go down this one, or we want to go down this one more frequently. So we've got to get more and more aware of the thoughts. And you might be really aware of them, but just jot them down really quickly. And then if you want to just pop them in the Q&A, I'll read a few of them. Because I think it's always helpful to see what other people are thinking. So you can know that you're not the only one, because we all have like human brains and we're all really similar in what we kind of into those practice beliefs. We all live in the same society. All right. Thanks for doing that, you guys. Awesome. So one of them is, I've got to teach them a lesson. I need to do this before it's too late. Yes, that's a belief that a lot of us have. Makes more work for me. Why is this a problem? I don't have time. Yes. I can't let them get away with that behavior. Yeah. Major thoughts I have is, I don't have time for this. Again, I can't believe they're fighting again over this stupid thing. Exactly. They shouldn't be doing this. I can't let them get away with this. So good. My kids shouldn't make a big deal over this. They should listen better. Yeah, so good. I'm failing. Oh yeah, then we totally sometimes just point it back to ourselves. They should be more patient. They told me they wouldn't do this. You guys, so good. Yes. Okay. You have those in front of you. So it's important that we bring those subconscious thoughts, like I said, that have been running the show to the conscious, which is what thought downloads can really do powerfully. And then we can catch them because now we see them, which we wouldn't see them if we just are like, yeah, I know, I think that, but like really declaring to be like, yes, this is something I think, and this is the patterns I have. Then all of a sudden we can make peace with it and we can interrupt it because now we're not going to judge ourselves or our kids, and we can replace them. Perfect. Perfect. Okay. So what I have found is when we go through these cycles of thoughts, these thoughts that we have, they've just been like running around in our brain over and over again, and we're not catching them, is we end up going into old thought patterns. We end up tapping into what society has taught us, what it means to be or how we should be as a parent. We start going into a corrective action cycle versus a connective action cycle. So when we don't catch ourselves, that's why we're doing this exercise today, and write down as many as you can. Because I want you to think about every time you write them down, you're releasing yourself. You're getting one step closer to freeing yourself of that thought. And I totally get why you're thinking those thoughts. It's just because that's what society has told us is true. But when we're like recycling these kind of thoughts over and over again, I don't have time for this again. I can't believe they're doing this. Why is this a problem still? Why aren't they figuring this out? All of those things you guys just typed in. Then we end up jumping into a corrective action cycle. And I want to bring this up again because we need to see it over and over again for us to be like, oh yeah, that's what happens. And that's why I'm interrupting this. And that's why this is working. And this is why the other one wasn't working. So there's 3 actions that we seem to recycle when we are not catching ourselves. And it's that we think that we need to respond to the off-track behavior with a consequence to fix or stop the behavior. That's like a default, like corrective action, right? We think that we need to respond quickly and consistently or they're not going to learn. And then we think we need to rationalize with them, or motivate them or incentivize them so they'll make a better choice next time. And this is what most of our brains think is going to eventually translate into success as a parent. But it doesn't work. And I want to just reiterate this again for all of us to just remember, because sometimes it's just such an ingrained pattern that we really have to have the evidence and the support and the reminders to be like, oh yeah, that's why it doesn't work. We forget when we are in that kind of brain space, we go into externally focused correction. The solution is outside instead of inside. And we know as we study Connect Method parenting that the solution is internally focused. It's all in here, that the relationship is the essential thing to the parenting, not the discipline. The way the kids learn the lesson, the way they soften isn't because of some consequence we give them, although those might be necessary for their safety or for other people's safety, but that's not truly the thing that's going to turn on that intrinsic motivation to choose the most loving, kind thing. I was talking to a good friend of ours that we met through a prison connection we were fortunate enough to be a part of. And years ago, we started visiting him in prison and now he's out. But he was telling us he's in his 40s and he's been in prison half of his life, 20 years. And he said the thing that finally got me to shift, got me to change, wasn't the sentence I got. It was the relationship that I started to have with myself, the forgiveness I gave myself, a connection I have to a higher power is so internally driven. It wasn't because he was behind bars that he was like, oh, I better get my act together. And it's so fascinating to hear over and over stories, because now we've met multiple people through him and it's the same thing over and over again. So as another perspective of it is relational focus. That is what motivates us to be our best. So that even if we have to put that restriction, that boundary, we have to do something, we have to set a limit, it's coming from a place of service and love. This is what's best for them. Corrective action doesn't work because it's externally focused instead of internally focused. It ignores that the relationship is essential to parenting. It's all about the things we say or the things we do. That's what's going to fix it. It gets caught in the should do better thinking. So this really turns into frustration and we get stuck in a parenting cycle of misery because we're like, we should do better. They should do better. So a lot of judgment instead of a lot of acceptance. And just one more thing about the relationship that I think goes hand in hand is that it forgets that safety is the treatment. The effects of the nervous system and how it impacts our decision-making and how it impacts our interpretation of the world and the decisions we make. When you look at things like PTSD, when people have been in really traumatic situations, the thing that allows them to move out of those or find healing is safety, is when their nervous system feels safety. So as I was opening today, we were talking about those connection reps. That is an exercise to create safety inside of yourself so that you can create safety for your children. All right. So how do we actually then drop into connective action? We're going to focus the rest on this topic. I wanted to have you thinking in your head, oh, corrective action is what I used to do. That's what society tells me to do. I can see where that cycle spins me, the connective action cycle. And I wanted to get into corrective action cycles, meaning that you are doing things that are making the relationship better, both when things are going great and when things are not going great with the kids. So when the off-track behaviors, tantrums, when that stuff's happening, we're actually using connective action to set limits from a place of compassion and firmness where things are actually making the relationship even better. We can create more trust even when we have to set a limit if we can do it in a connective way. So connective action doesn't include judging. It doesn't include things that are coming from a punitive place. So the actions that we're doing, even if we have to set a limit or take away a toy or even take away an electronic or even maybe change the activities for the day, it's coming from a place of service, not from a place of judgment. So we're not showing up triggered or negatively energized when things aren't going well. You're noticing when things are going right and you're energizing them, and you're really showing up powerfully when things are going right. And when things are going off track, you're showing up with compassion and firmness. So we have this clear plan to stay calm no matter what, no matter how awesome or not awesome the kids are showing up. And so this is really powerful just to even conceptualize that. Wow, is that possible? And when we show up connected and calm and patient when the kids are, their behaviors off track, our ability to increase the connection we have with them is tenfold, because they know there's a part of them that knows that they're not showing up in the maybe the easiest, kindest, most loving way. Even if they can't stop it, they're aware of it. And they might have even an internal dialogue where they start judging themselves and thinking, I shouldn't be doing this. When we don't match it with equal or similar energy, we come in and we show up with more love and compassion, even if we have to take away a privilege, because that's what's going to serve them the best. That's what they really need in that situation. I love asking that question. What do they need right now? What do they need from a place of love? Not what do they deserve? What do they need? So when we come with this plan and we practice being able to handle this emotion they're having, which has previously been very uncomfortable and something we really didn't want to happen. That's why we're so quick to rush to fix or correct, is because we're so uncomfortable with their emotion of anger, frustration, or entitlement, or whatever our brain's labeling it as. Oh my gosh, I can't handle feeling that or having that being put off by them. But when we can handle that, we're like, that's fine. I can honor that that's where they are, and I can show up totally different than that. That is when magic starts happening. And instead of just going to this default place where we think there's two options, being passive or being authoritative, we realize, oh, there's a middle way. And we're training our brain to do that. It's the Connect Method parenting way. It's this middle way where we train our brains and we relax our nervous systems. So we train our brains with new beliefs. We practice it ahead of time, in the moment, and after the fact. We're relaxing our nervous system ahead of time, in the moment. The connective reps that I showed you today are such a good way in the moment when you can't really take a break to go do a thought download. But we're practicing, how do I relax my nervous system ahead of time so I'm prepared for what's going to happen? And how do I try to calm it down in the moment? And how do I look at what just happened, no matter how good or bad I did or they did, with complete acceptance and love, so that I can relax my nervous system after the fact too. And as a result, create this new way of being where we're showing up, believing that when there's off-track behavior, it's not a problem, and we can come with compassion and firmness. And now I know sometimes your brain still might be arguing with you and say, it's too good to be true, but you're going to have glimpses of this that will then become bigger moments of it, where you're going to see how it is 100% possible, and that it really is the way you're going to want to show up. It feels amazing, by the way, and it's consistently going to get your kids wanting to listen to you more of the time. Now, of course, they're still children, immature nervous systems, immature brains, so they're going to not always be perfect at all. Neither are we. But it's going to up our chance of one or both of us being in a better place when things start to hit the fan. So the strategic byproduct is that we create this awesome trust and deep relationship with our child, but also that we become so much more emotionally intelligent and patient and compassionate and understanding. So powerful. So we've talked about really the connective cycle, the connective action cycle steps, which are really the 3 strategies that are sprinkled throughout the entire CMP course. We talk about them all of the time. And really, it's that we come and we are understanding our own brain, which is why I'm sending you daily reminders to hopefully do your daily piece, but that's going to bring a lot of understanding to retrain those neural pathways if you're in the habit of doing that. But that's really when I understand my behavior and my thoughts, which allows me to leave so much room for their behaviors and their thoughts and create so much more understanding of them. We're consistently connecting ahead of time when things are going great. We're energizing their greatness. We're doing special one-on-one time with them, whatever we feel called to do that's going to strengthen that relationship, where we were reading to them every night at bedtime. And then we're also choosing closeness when things are off track, which is really the epitome, the culmination rather, of the other 2 steps. We lay the foundation by understanding our own behavior so we can leave room for theirs. We start to create a connection with them ahead of time, intentionally, with a lot of energy. And then we build these muscles so that we can start to consistently choose closeness, or more and more consistently choose closeness as things are off track, which is really the most challenging part for most of us. So I want to talk about one of the ways we do that. And one of the ways we do that is to get really comfortable with our feelings. And for me, I didn't realize how uncomfortable I was feeling some of these negative emotions until I took the time to sit and realize why I was frustrated, really, by the way the kids were showing up and their emotions. But as we begin to really get comfortable with an emotion, and I've said this over and over to myself, like the worst thing that can happen is an emotion, and I can learn to handle that emotion, then I get to learn to be in control no matter what. I get to learn, even if it's not in that moment, I don't show up perfectly, I'm able to learn and grow. And it's this journey of progression. So feelings are part of the human experience. We have a contrast of feelings. We have a contrast of these emotions that come into our life. And some we've labeled as positive and some we have labeled as negative. And we need the contrast. We need the opposites so that we even know the difference between sadness and joy, hate and love. And if we only experienced what we would call positive emotions, we wouldn't even know that they were positive. We wouldn't be able to distinguish between the two. So a lot of us have gotten stuck into this belief that everything should always be great and we should always feel good. And if we're feeling a quote unquote negative emotion, that's a bad sign. So we don't want to have any more of those bad emotions. And I want us to just bring that to the forefront again and say, where am I on that scale? Maybe you used to thought the epitome of arriving was never feeling a negative emotion, never getting triggered, never getting frustrated. If that was where we used to feel on a scale of 1 to 10, I was 10, that was where I was. And now maybe we're at a 5. I'm getting used to the idea, but it's still maybe a little bit of a challenge. So we're getting to this place where we get really comfortable and really accepting that all of these emotions truly are here to serve me. And the emotions are the fuel that grow us up. We don't know how to get better at feeling and navigating sadness, frustration, anger, irritation, resentment, all of those emotions, unless we feel them. That's how we learn to get better at them. So for many of us feel our true purpose in life, or we have felt this, is to conquer all those bad emotions. So we try to live in this paradise without any negative emotions. But we don't realize that this one belief that we have for ourselves often makes things worse for ourselves, because now we have this allergic reaction when we feel a negative emotion, or we're trying to run away from it so much that we get even more irritated with ourselves or our children. And really, the bottom line is it's also just impossible. I haven't met anybody that gets that way. I think even if someone like Gandhi or whoever you would put on that, pedestal, I think they're still feeling, they're still riding the wave. I think that's part of the human journey. I think they've mastered how to navigate it in such a beautiful way that they're not being driven by it. They are able to be in such a high level of awareness around it and acceptance around it that the judgment, the frustration, the irritation isn't the thing that just all of a sudden, oh, shoot, it got away from me again. And it made me say these things that I don't like. I think they're in this place where they're able to, they have learned, however they've gotten there. I think everyone's a little bit differently, where they've learned not to be afraid of them and not to allow them to run the show. They stay in control. I don't know that, and maybe I'm wrong, and I'm totally fine if we're wrong, if some people get to the place where they never feel a negative emotion, but I think it's more that they know they become masters at navigating them so that they don't run them. Okay, I want you to consider that maybe our human experience, maybe one of the reasons we're down here is to have this huge, beautiful experience of positive and negative emotions, that we can feel them, that we can navigate them, that we can learn to grow and become better because of them, and that we aren't driven by them, but we get to feel them. And I love this concept because as I have stepped more and more into this, and this, I was really kicking and screaming at first because I was so thinking, no, the ultimate level of success, measure of success is that I never get frustrated again. And I've come to learn, like, it's not that. I'm going to still feel all of those things. I'm a human, but I'm not going to let that drive me, say something that I regret, or get to become so intelligent and so calm around it. I think that's the goal. So as I've tried this on, I have seen my life have so much less negativity about the negativity. So I want you to think about it. If we could stop hating the hate, there would be so much less hate. If we could stop getting frustrated that we were frustrated, there would be so much less frustration. Now, I think there's so much beauty when we get curious about the frustration. And that's the emotion I've begun to insert there, is how instead of getting frustrated, I'm frustrated, or frustrated that I'm frustrated that I'm frustrated. Sometimes it felt like this big, huge hill I built with emotion after emotion piled on top of it. When I can instead insert curiosity, I don't build this big mountain of emotions that's full of judgment and frustration. I just get to go to the core and be like, that's really interesting, and navigate through it really fairly quickly most of the time. So if we're creating our thoughts, and some of them, like I always say, are intentional and some are unintentional, some are subconscious, some are conscious. But regardless, they're there because of something that's happened, some belief, some situation that's caused this belief. And that is creating an interpretation of the world, the thoughts, the feelings, the emotional experience that we're having, and that that's a balance of positive and negative emotions. We do, like I said before, which I think is what those people that we really look up to, and we're like, wow, they're really able to navigate tricky situations without losing their cool. I think it's because they've had the ability, and we have the same ability, to create and allow emotions instead of resisting emotions, instead of pushing them away. So think about this for a moment. Our emotions have evolved as our brains have evolved. So our thinking, whether it's conscious or subconscious, the words that we're able to have, the language that we have, is what causes our emotions or allows us to label them. So more sophisticated language becomes more sophisticated emotions, or more varied language, more varied emotions. So that's a better way to say it. And this will be something that we continue to do as our brains continue to evolve and grow, as we continue to push the boundaries of what we can do as humans. And I think this is really exciting. And as we step into this, also stepping into the acceptance of the whole thing, all of it, even when we get really frustrated, it's there to teach us a lesson. There's nothing wrong. It's just something, there's some reason our body thinks that's important to have that frustration. A lot of times it thinks that's how it's protecting us. And as we get better at applying that belief to ourselves, we're able to apply it to our kids. So if our language and our thought patterns convince us that we should be happy all of the time, and that negative balance is something to try to eradicate, want to get rid of those negative emotions, we're going to get lost in thought loops, in negative thought loops that aren't going to serve us. So this is what we want to just be aware of. We're getting curious about those thoughts. We wrote down, what are the thoughts I'm having about my children when things are going wrong? Maybe what are the thoughts I'm having about ourselves? Some of you wrote that down. What are the emotions that I'm having, and why are they a problem? What are they causing, and why are they a problem? Are they a problem? Maybe it's just like, oh, if I got curious, I could just understand them. So when we understand that these beliefs we have in our brain is really the filter, we're putting on different glasses, some are pink, some are purple with different lenses, that they're causing our emotional interpretation of the things, of the situations in our life. I want you to think about how much pain we create for ourselves when we think we shouldn't have any negative experiences in the world. The kids should be kind. People should not have road rage. There's so many thoughts that are sneaky little thoughts that come in that seem maybe true, but when we step into them, is this helping me have more kindness, have more compassion, have more love? And that's just a sampling of some thoughts that cause so much unnecessary and useless suffering that don't make things better. We think that those thoughts are like, the kids should be kind. That's a helpful thought that's going to help the kids be kind. But really and I've had this thought, kids should be kind. They should be more responsible. They should be cleaner. And really that just leads me into thinking a lot of judgmental thoughts, and it shouldn't be that way. Instead of, I wonder what's happening with the kids. I wonder what's going on with them. I wonder why I'm so triggered. I wonder why they're so frustrated right now. And it's okay that it's this way. That's so much more powerful. So much more powerful. The other tragedy is that in our effort to be happy all of the time, or from a parent's point of view, to feel like the kids should be behaving better all of the time, and then the judgment we have when we don't show up the way we want to show up, which is really so interesting for me to think about that, because it doesn't get us where we want to go. If we were as committed to being curious and compassionate towards ourselves and our kids as we are currently, a lot of us are towards judging and wishing things were different, that would change so much. And that's a challenge I want to put out there. Where are you on that commitment level? Are you more committed to trying to prove that you're right, or that your kids are wrong, or that things should be different, or that it's okay that you're staying frustrated, instead of committed to compassionately giving everybody the benefit of the doubt and trying to understand what's going on for them in this moment? Where are we more committed to? Accepting that all emotions are okay, accepting that they're doing their very best. Like, what am I more committed to practicing? So if we would be willing to be more committed to practicing that compassionate, even if that feels scary, we're committed to that courageously without knowing or understanding everything. We're committed to trying to understand okay, I'm going to be navigating all of this. The kids' behavior is going to be all over the chart. This is just the normal human experience. So how do we reconcile living a life where we get to experience all of this? What would life be like if we were embracing the off-track behavior as much as the on-track behavior, very consciously and deliberately? And the truth is, we just feel so much more in control. We would get to select our emotions on purpose instead of getting driven by the judgment and the should not do that. That's not okay. Again, I can't believe they're doing that again. We'd start to notice those thoughts as they come up, because they're going to come up, not a problem. But we'd be able to see them with so much love for ourselves. Oh, there's my nervous system trying to protect me again, thinking that I need to stop this because it's unsafe, instead of just understand it because it's totally normal. We'd get to have so much more traction. And we, like I said, get to select our emotions and our beliefs and live so much more intentionally, and have so much more progress. And this doesn't mean we should always be living in the land of happy-go-lucky, yay, everything's positive. But can we live in the land of curiosity? Can we live in the land of acceptance? Can we live in the land of presence? And that is such a powerful tool, instead of trying to live in the land of always being happy and positive and everybody's perfect all of the time. It's like, what if we're okay that it's not perfect all of the time? And we leaned into that. How would that change everything for us? Because that's really the goal. Isn't about making life perfect. It's about accepting and loving no matter what is, loving what is. I think the goal is humanness. That's the goal, not necessarily always happiness, but humanness. And to live this human experience as well as we can, knowing that it includes a lot of contrast on purpose. So if we can say, hey, I'm going to choose humanness, I used to say this all the time to myself, instead of always trying to choose happiness, to have more humanness, the ups and downs, the 50-50, the off-track behavior, all of it, like choose that, intentionally choose that over thinking I have to be feeling happy all the time. And to be honest, like I feel like I can, when I choose humanness and I choose to accept all the things that are happening, I get as maybe I don't know, consolation gift, it seems, or a strategic byproduct, I get so much more happiness. I get so much more peace. But it's because I'm choosing to stop fighting and judging. It comes, not because I'm trying to go after it, if that makes sense. So we get more peace as a byproduct of living life more and trusting more in just the goodness of other people and ourselves and the beauty of the whole gamut of the experience. And sometimes I just want to say this because I think sometimes we get confused. Sometimes we want to feel, the most helpful negative emotion to me is grief. Like we want to feel grief when someone we love dies. So I think grief is actually really, even though we could call it a negative emotion, a lot of times we categorize it there. We might want to sit in that for a while, and we could go into curiosity and acceptance of that too, for sure. But when we get to choose to feel intentionally what we want to feel, what those emotions are, when we're living from this place of curiosity, instead of just feeling it as that knee-jerk reaction, like I don't have any choice. I want to choose to feel maybe angry if I know somebody's been mistreated. I want to choose to feel disappointed for a period of time if something didn't go the way I was hoping it would go. But I know it's optional, and I know that I can navigate that. Like I'm the one that's choosing that. We want to feel, and we need to feel all of the emotions. We don't want to just feel joy all the time. We want to feel the whole range of emotions. That way, when joy comes, it's just so much better. But the negative emotions of maybe frustration or disappointment that come up we're able to navigate it so quickly when we're not resisting it. We don't think they shouldn't be there. We think they mean something terrible about ourselves. Yes. So once you accept this, you can live such a more conscious life. So I want you to think for a minute right now of what feelings you are going to choose. So if the theory is correct that we can't choose to feel happy all of the time, and I hope that you're considering that, and not from a place of, I'm not happy about that, but really from a place of that's the beauty of it. If we can live from this space, then we really get to decide what emotions serve us in this balance between these opposites of positivity and negativity. And I love the imagery of a silver platter of emotions to select from. Someone coming around at a dinner party and here's these options. What ones do you want? What ones do you need? Because what I found is I've done this exercise that I want you guys to take a second and do, either right now or just this week, is to really brainstorm what are the emotions that you want to feel, that you're willing to feel. There's this opposite. If I want to feel love, what is the opposite of that emotion? And these are not definitive. These are according to me, but you get to come up with your own. But for me, if I get to feel love, then what's the opposite that I would have to experience so that I would actually know what love is? And for me, it's sadness. Or if I want to feel abundant, then maybe, and there might be other ones, like scarcity could be the negative emotion that is in tandem with it, or pain. If I'm really motivated to do something and I'm going for it, and I want to feel that emotion, I might sometimes need to experience a loss or a lull in my motivation. If I'm focused, maybe I have to feel disappointment sometimes. If I have a desire, maybe I'm going to feel a little bit of fear that if I want that really bad and I don't get it, I might have to be fearful that what that would mean about me. And I think it's interesting. So the challenge I have for you is making a list of positive emotions and trying to pair it with what that negative emotion is that you would need to feel to have the experience of the positive. If we believe we have to have the opposite to experience it, what is that opposite that's in with it? Sometimes doing this exercise releases the subconscious thought we have that we need to eradicate all the negative. Now, I'm not saying you indulge in the negative or we justify the negative or we do a lot of actions from that place, those negative emotions, but like dipping into the experience of them and being like, oh, if I really love someone deeply, I might feel rejected sometimes. I'm willing to do that, or I might feel loss, or I might feel pain. So what is that opposites for you? And everyone gets to make up their own because there's no perfect list. There's no right list, but what is it for you? And see if that kind of releases. When I think through this, it's very necessary. It's very preventative and useful emotion for me as a human. When I think about fear, for example, fear is the most interesting. I don't often think about wanting to have fear as an emotion, but when I've gone through the process, that's really important, because if I want to have things, for me, that seems to be related, then I have maybe a fear of not having it. And I definitely don't want to not have big hopes and dreams for myself, for my kids, for our relationships. And there might be sometimes where those hopes and dreams, those desires don't come through. And then I'm okay knowing that a little fear or a little bit of loss or a little bit of worry might pop in. So I want you to explore those emotions. I want you to think about what lines up on both sides. The side with the positive yumminess, lovely feeling, feels so good. And the side with maybe the heartache, or the side that feels more like a bummer or a little more reluctant. We need to talk about those emotions that we don't seem to choose, the ones that come up without our permission. And as you go through this process of accepting this balance that happens, you're going to feel less accosted by these unwanted emotions. You're going to feel like, oh, I want this negative emotion because it allows me to have this positive emotion of love. And as a parent, we need to become masters of holding these emotions, because we're going to be generating our emotions, and our kids are going to be showing up with their emotions of frustration and upset. And they're not in the place developmentally where they're as able to intentionally accept these emotions or accept the behavior of their siblings or of what we need to do. So we become the master at holding these emotions, of experiencing unwanted emotions and accepting them and realizing, oh, I do want them. But the thought errors we have about the ones we were talking about before, it's going to make more work for me, or why is this still a problem, or how is this happening again, or why aren't they getting it? Those are still going to pop up. And we're going to navigate those and realize how they all fit into this plan of like, oh yeah, part of me is going to experience like these negative thought loops or negative emotions. I just need to see them and accept them and then transition over very intentionally. This is just normal human stuff. So I want you to consider the unwanted emotions that we're willing to experience to be the connect method parent, that connective, juicy parent we want to be. And before you do that, I want to mention the concept of indulgent emotions. These are emotions that you will be willing to experience, but you also might have a tendency to indulge in them a little bit without realizing it. There's an important distinction between allowing an emotion and then indulging in the emotion. And I want you to really understand the difference, because as a parent, it's really important that we understand we need to allow all emotions, but indulging doesn't serve us. So we often need to allow an emotion that we would normally resist or avoid. So this is incredibly important, because the negative effect of avoiding and resisting an emotion is unnecessary. That makes sense? So the emotions we tend to avoid are the same emotions we need to work through and allow to get us the results we want. So let me say that again. We often have emotions that we don't want to feel. They're so negative. We've become so accustomed to them being not helpful for us that we just don't even want to go there. And that is really fascinating. They're often the ones we need to get more familiar with. So discomfort, deprivation, boredom, failure, insecurity, rage, maybe anxiety. That's not a complete list, but you get the idea. It's not fun. But if we're willing to feel these unwanted emotions instead of trying to push them away and avoid them, it's going to spare us more suffering. We're going to become more emotionally intelligent. So the unwillingness to stay conscious when these emotions appear, which means to sit in them for just a moment. And when I'm saying sit in them, sometimes 10 seconds, just sit in it. Could be longer if you're wanting to dive into that more, but just for a moment even, and not be like, oh my gosh, I can't do that. So we sit in them consciously. And when these emotions appear, this is the ability for us to just sit in them allows us to release them. So the skill of allowing an emotion is something we're really passionate about teaching you guys, because when we're not willing to sit in them, it really creates it just cuts us off from our dreams, because being willing to be uncomfortable with all these emotions, looking at our thoughts, doing the daily piece, and really examining, being like, is that really what's in my head? That's such a not a cool thought. Like, we really look at it and be like, oh my gosh. And then we're like, there's a reason for it. We can sit with it. Then we can sit with the emotions it brings up of judgment or frustration or rage or anxiety. Sit with that and then realize that this discomfort, when we sit with it, the emotion, it allows us to move through that emotion, which really is, I think of it as we're metabolizing it. We're letting it come into our body. We're letting our body do what it needs to do with it. Get rid of the unnecessary part, use the positive part, and use that as energy to move towards our dreams. So an indulgent emotion, let me talk about the difference. So allowing an emotion is different from indulging in emotions. So sometimes when I say indulge in an emotion, it's like we stay stuck in it. So confusion, doubt, worry, overwhelm, victimizing ourselves or victimization, these feelings, they seem to be really important. Like, I don't know what to do with the kids. I don't know how to fix this, or I don't think I can do this. That's a doubt one. I don't know if I can figure this out. I don't know if the kids are ever going to get better. I don't know if maybe it's too late, or we're worrying like, this has gone on for too long, probably never going to fix this. We're worried about they're never going to become responsible citizens. I'm so overwhelmed by the house being messy. We get into these thought patterns and they feel really important at the time. We seem justified in feeling them on purpose, but these feelings are the ones that keep us from taking action. So these emotions and thoughts that cause them, they are the dream stealing excuses that stop us in our tracks from being able to amaze ourselves throughout our lives. So we don't want to indulge in them. We want to feel them. We want to know what they are, and we don't want to stay stuck in them. We don't want to be staying overwhelmed. And if we find ourselves staying stuck in them, we want to ask for help, because I've done that too. Sometimes I'm so used to worrying about this child or feeling overwhelmed or having doubt or confusion. And that's just a small list of them. But if we're staying stuck in them and we're feeling like the action we're taking is just spinning, or maybe being grouchy, like that's a good ding, 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 that this isn't actually an emotion that I'm allowing. I've moved into indulging in it, and I'm stuck in my old patterns. So just be aware of that. So here's what I want you to do for this week so that you can really internalize this concept and try it for yourself. I want you to do your daily piece every day. And from each steer that you create, I want you to look at that E line, that emotion line, which will be what you're feeling, that emotion. And I want you to ask yourself 3 things. Do I want to feel it? Is it unwanted, but I need to allow it? Or is it indulgent? So is it just an emotion I need to feel? Totally fine. Is it maybe what emotion I don't really want, but I need to allow it, and I really do actually want to feel it? Or is it indulgent and it's not really going to get me anywhere I need to go? And when you do the daily piece, you do the unintentional or the default, and then you do your intentional model. And I want you just to look at the emotions that are driving the actions in both of those, and they're very different typically. A lot of times in my default or unintentional steer, there are those indulgent, or those emotions that I need to feel and I want to look at them and I want to get curious about them, but I definitely don't want to stay in that place. So I want you to give yourself some space and really think about, is this emotion when I just need to feel it for a second? It's really uncomfortable, but I want to allow it and feel it. Or is it an indulgent emotion that I tend to just stay stuck in, or I have been stuck in it for a while? This exercise is so powerful, even if you just do it one time. And if you do it 30 days straight or every day this week, you're going to be so much more conscious, powerful, and deliberate as a human, aware of those emotions that are driving the train, how to look at those thoughts, and really asking yourself, is this one emotion I just need to feel? Is it one that is really uncomfortable, but I want to just really practice allowing it? And you could do a whole thought download just on an emotion. Is it unwanted, but I want to allow, or is it indulgent? That is what I want you to focus on this week. Okay, I'll talk to you later. Bye.
If you enjoyed listening to this podcast, come check out League, my Connect Method parenting coaching program, where we take this material and we apply it using my proven formula. Head over to cmp.works/join.